I guess the main takeaway is like maybe we shouldn't take these camp analyses with too much weight. Like, I don't know, maybe it's like I just feel like when I look at these offenses, and it's like, oh, Trey Lance is balling out, Justin Fields is balling out, I just want to take it with a grain of salt. I really do.
Well, I think the way to look at it is if what you're hearing from camp supports what you already thought, then it's proof that you're right. But if what you hear from camp doesn't support what you already thought, then it's just training camp, and you shouldn't take it that seriously.
Exactly.
That's how I've always done it.
No, that's exactly
but I like
what it
Trey
is.
Lance and Justin Fields, and I'm just
So
like,
yeah,
man.
So then you're
right.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Bladen Kirk, and joined as always by the two greatest and my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. How are you guys today?
I'm good. I'm admiring Matthew's new apartment, his new settings that he's recording.
It's a house. Why does everyone keep calling it an apartment? Why am I the one why does Matt not correct anyone on this?
It's not a house. He's like 300 feet up in the air.
I'm not 300 feet up in the air.
It's a house.
It's my house.
Are you on a hill?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I'm like on the side of a hill, and I'll show it off at some point once I get the room fully set up. But it like overlooks the city skyline of Cincinnati through my bedroom window. It's pretty sick.
I like how you don't have a comforter on your bed, but you do have a rug on there. So it makes me think you're just going to sleep under the rug tonight.
I just threw the rug on there because it was on the floor. I just put it there.
It's like a Tom and Jerry episode.
The rug was on the floor. I would hate for the rug to be on the floor.
Well, it wasn't. Okay. Yep, I'm going to sleep under that, dude.
I think that's the mental image I have in my mind. But yes.
You ever go shopping and you just set something on your bed and then figure out where you're going to put it later?
On the floor. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just joking around. I'm just joking around.
I'm not joking.
Can you please relax, Matt? Can you please relax?
As always, guys, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, like, rate, comment, whatever you can do. We're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, etc. Keep helping grow this podcast on all platforms. And if you haven't yet, make sure you follow at Stay Hot Pod on TikTok. We're going to be posting some great content there as well. Speaking of great content there, I posted a video about a guy who committed to Oklahoma, Makai Lemon. And it was funny because you are the lemon guy. Yeah, that's it, Theo. You're right.
I drove past a street in Tempe called Lemon Street, and I think I'll go there and maybe record something and be like, where is Bladen's house? I think that would be funny.
That would be funny, Theo. You're right. I live on Lemon Street because I'm the lemon guy. No, but I just think it's funny. Like, I get tagged in anything lemon related. Like, it doesn't matter how prevalent it is. If there's a lemon, I'm so
tired of like the fake surprised. You bring it upon yourself on purpose. You've done this on purpose. The hot take from the ice cream ranking is that the lemon ice cream wasn't even the worst part. It was the peanut butter ice cream that was your worst part of that ranking, because peanut butter ice cream does not exist. It never has existed. It still doesn't exist.
You don't exist, man.
I think that should be the joke, because that was not even real.
What are people gonna? I don't know. I feel like lemon man or lemon boy runs off the tongue a little bit nicer than like peanut butter boy, peanut butter man.
Yeah, that one's bad. But yeah, you're right. You're right about that.
I don't know, but no,
I don't want people to forget that part of the ranking was worse.
I don't know. I just want to know which one of you keeps ratioing me on the Stay Hot TikTok account.
Oh, I wonder who that is. Yeah, I bet it's Matt.
That's my guess. But, Theo, I don't know how committed you are. Well, today we're going to talk about some NFL news, some takeaways from the first preseason game. It wasn't all that interesting, but I figured we might as well touch on it. We're going to be doing some fantasy fades, just some guys that we're not super high on going into the upcoming fantasy football season. And I think we're going to start, though, with some NBA free agency and kind of what was going on with the Summer League. You know what, Matt? I think I'll let you orchestrate this one.
Well, big move that we haven't talked about yet is Kemba to the Knicks. And I think that's probably the best possible landing spot for him, somewhere where I feel like he can get the largest share of shot creation, which is the thing that he's best at.
Because, I mean, most other teams you'd go there, it's like, oh, he's going to be the second or the third option. I don't know if that's what you want out of Kemba. The thing about him is that he is over 30 and a small guard with lower body injuries, and that does not typically age very well in the NBA. I think he'll be better than he was with the Celtics. I really do. And if he looks even a little bit like his former self, the Knicks got a steal and they're going to be way better. But I'm not banking on him returning to be. I'm not banking on him returning to all-star form. I think it'll be better, but maybe not quite that good.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the Knicks to have someone because they are such a young team. Like, and you saw them in the playoffs. I think they weren't quite ready for that stage. And Kemba, obviously, cardiac Kemba, is a guy who I don't think is going to shrink in that situation. So I feel like it is good to have kind of a veteran presence who's been in kind of high. I mean, obviously he hasn't like perennially been in the playoffs, but you know what he did in pressure is pressure, and he's definitely felt pressure before and had to perform at a high level in playoffs before. And I think that it'll be good for the Knicks to have kind of an older guy like that who can, you know, maybe has been in high pressure situations before, because a lot of the Knicks guys have not been in those types of settings.
My big question for them is, are Derrick Rose and Kemba Walker going to be on the court at the same time? Because I think that fit is going to be a little funky, at least defensively. I don't know how great that'll be. But I think overall, they didn't pay all that much for him. I feel like it's low risk, high reward. I'm a little disappointed that they had $59 million in cap space and they chose to run it back and then add a couple guys. I feel like they could have really swung for the fences. Maybe it just didn't end up working out for them. But they got Fournier too. I don't know. It's definitely an upgrade.
Theo, you're the one that said NBA basketball is better when the Knicks are bad.
People are always like, people will be like 18 years old and say the NBA is better when the Knicks are good. How would you know? You know, like, I don't know. That was just a funny video because people are always telling me, you know, the NBA is better when the Knicks are good because they're a big market team and stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, I think it doesn't really matter. But, you know,
the Knicks, if people might view the Knicks positively and they might be like, oh, this is such a nice team, such a fun team. But I definitely feel like, and this is true for most fan bases, but maybe particularly for New York, or the Knicks, since there's so many Knicks fans. When they win a series, people will get annoyed.
Our producer is a New York sports fan, and he's in the chat telling me that it matters if the Knicks are good and they're the new 76ers.
No, it'll be it's always better when the Knicks are good, and it'll be like a Knicks fan. I was like, well, yeah. I'm sure it's more enjoyable for you.
Yeah, no, it is.
I was going to say something about the Browns, not going to.
That's character development. But yeah, summer league is getting going, and it's really weird. The NBA season or off season does not feel like an NBA off season. The season ends, then there's the lottery, and then there's free agency, and then there's the draft, and then there's the Olympics, and now there's summer league. It's like the NBA is a 365 days a year, no dead time event. This is crazy.
Well, the schedule is still messed up, and I know having things this jam packed together is bad in the long term. But it's hard not to enjoy everything just like keeping going, and you get to keep seeing stuff, and there's no break in the action because NBA free agency is crazy fun. And I'm really excited for the summer league. We're going to go here on the 11th. So maybe by the time you're listening to this, we'll be in Las Vegas, ready to watch some summer league. Theo, is there anything in particular that you're excited to watch, or anything that you've watched so far that you've been excited about?
I mean, he was a second overall pick, so it's not that impressive to be like, I knew Jalen Green was going to be good, but I love that guy. Like that, to me, the ceiling on him, and to see him cook in summer league like he did in the first game, you know, when you get someone with a combination of that type of athleticism that he has, he can jump out the building. And then, I mean, the pure skill and the shot making that he's exhibited, he's the one I'm most excited for. I think that like it kind of happened with John Morant. He was a guy who was like skilled and also could jump out of the building, and you know, look what he's become. Right. I honestly think that Jalen Green could even be a little bit more skilled than Ja. Like I think Jalen Green is fantastic. He's someone that I'm excited to watch. I I was obviously being a Suns fan. There's Jalen Smith and Jalen Smith. They've got two guys kind of named Jalen Smith. But I don't know. I'm most excited to see the high draft picks. So, Cade Cunningham came in, hit some nice shots. That release of his is absolutely butter. I'm excited to see the high draft picks.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you with the Jalen Green stuff. His bag is nuts.
Yeah.
Just game one, going out there, taking ridiculously high difficulty shots and sinking them. I don't know if him playing in the G League means that he's a little bit more prepared to play against this level of competition, or if he really is just this good. But regardless, I don't blame you for being excited about him.
I think the one thing that might be more impressive than just him going out and making those shots is the fact that he has the confidence to take those shots so early.
Yeah, I made a video on TikTok about it today. He looked super confident. Game one. And that's exactly what the Rockets need, is a guy who I'm assuming they want to make their number one option immediately, if not sometime during the season. Guys, I'm super excited for. I'm a big Hornets fan, so I'm biased. But I don't know if you guys watched Kai Jones. I keep mixing it up. Kai Jones yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
Big dunk.
That guy is nuts. And I said before the draft, not that this is my comp for him, not that he's going to be this good, but that there are times where he moves like Giannis. Really, really seems that way. He jumps at that dunk he had was just crazy.
It was.
He got so high and he moves so fast, and he does a great job of keeping himself in front of people. He had a fantastic block immediately into the game where someone tries to drive on him. He stays right in front of him. Wasn't even close. Shouldn't have even come close to putting that shot up. He had a lot of good putback stuff. There were times where he would even drive in, and he's doing a really good job of passing off when he draws a double team.
Yes.
And that's
the other fun thing about the Hornets is that LiAngelo proved to be the best ball brother in the league in their first summer league game.
Yeah.
So you've got that. You've got the first and second best ball brother.
He's I'll be honest. When we brought him on, I saw a lot of Hornets fans being like, "Oh, we've got him for next year. You don't forget about I'm not super confident he's making the roster, but he's at least out there. He's playing super hard. He's hustling super hard. His jump shot looks great. He was getting it off. Not only just like they gave me some open threes, then I hit him. He hit some tough threes with people closing out on him. And if he keeps playing tough and fighting for boards and hustling and hitting threes, I think he makes the roster. I don't think it's impossible at all.
Yeah, LeVar Ball really is the main character. I don't even know. It's I keep thinking that these Ball brothers will like flame out at one point, or it's just like a fad, or they're like reality TV show stars.
They're actually good at basketball.
And they're all actually good. And they're all like, now they're like, could be on the same team with LiAngelo and LaMelo. So I've just decided to predict that everything good will happen to them, because I keep expecting this like era to be over, and it's not going to be over. So I'm just going to predict them to succeed in any capacity, because that's what's been happening so far.
I think a lot of it is you see this whole like family aspect and LeVar Ball and all this talking, and you kind of assume that those players are going to think of themselves a little bit too highly and be very entitled and play like that. And with, all that, it's not like that at all. Those guys play so tough. LiAngelo he was playing hard, knowing he had to fight to make the roster. Ball, I think a lot of people expected him to come in and act like the star from day one. He comes in and he plays tough for the Hornets. So I think people maybe put a little bit too much stock into just being annoyed at LeVar because he goes and talks on all these like shows or whatever, when really that doesn't reflect on how he really is as a person or how he's been as a parent. It doesn't really reflect on how
Didn't
those
he
guys
say he
players.
could beat Michael Jordan one-on-one?
Like, he's just talking. He's like...
I can say that. I can go on the Stay Hot pod and I can make these kinds of claims too, and people will listen to it's easy to put a mic in some. It's easy to put a mic in front of someone, and then if they're mentally like, I'm gonna make a splash here, I can do it. He can do it. He's just the one who actually went through with it.
No, Bladen, that's a great point. I've made a video saying I could be Michael Jordan. The only difference is that people know I'm joking when I say it. When LeVar says it, people are always just trying to get attention. We're like, yeah, but he's not taking it that serious.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. So Matt, we got to know, do you think the Hornets are playoff contenders now? Like deep playoff contenders?
Deep playoff contenders? No. Nope.
So you're not that biased.
The East has gotten really strong.
You're not that biased.
I mean, I don't know if we talked about this last episode, but you got Bucks, Nets, 76ers, Heat, Bulls. One of those teams can't make the first round.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hornets making it past the first round would be pretty amazing. I'm just hoping that they can go and win a play-in game. I think that's my goal for them this year.
That's fair.
But if they don't do that because they decided to move the timeline back a little bit and try to get young as possible, and we see some development out of these guys, but it doesn't work out and they don't make it into the playoffs and play a series, I'm fine with that too.
Even just a good play-in game after what they did last year.
Anything but like letting Doug McDermott drop 100 on us in a quarter will be an improvement.
Okay, so Matt, you have very low expectations, as I can see, but let's move on to the NFL. There's a lot of stuff going on with the NFL. Obviously, Xavian Howard is staying in Miami. That's kind of the biggest, news. I think that's kind of unexpected, at least from my point of view. I was under the impression that he was just totally cutting ties.
I mean, they needed Xavian Howard. They really do, because
absolutely.
With the amount of blitzes they send and the amount of times that their defensive backs are on an island, they need good corners, because, if you have a bad corner out there and they're going to send the blitz and that your wide receiver is going to win a little quick man coverage slant route, it's over for the Dolphins. So I think Xavian Howard had all the leverage in that situation, and he utilized it brilliantly, clearly, because,
absolutely.
He didn't say anything. He doesn't get this attention. So I think it works out for both teams. He gets what he wants, and the Dolphins keep a very, very key part of their defense.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've always felt is that, and I think analytics back this up, from year to year, coverage is really hard. We see Jamal Adams took a step back in coverage this year. We saw, even Stephon Gilmore, who is arguably the league's best coverage corner, was not nearly as good in coverage, as, a lot of people expected him to be. So, already, I wouldn't expect Xavian Howard to be like Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But if you're going into next year without him, you're really in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I don't anticipate him getting 10 picks again. That's
what I'm saying.
I guarantee that's going to be a career high, but he's still he is still a very good coverage corner, and good coverage corners are good. All that, like Champ Bailey was good every year. Charles Woodson, good every year. Darrell Revis, good every year. Like, I don't think he'll have quite the year he did last year, but he's absolutely worth the money.
From year to year, I'm talking mostly for like the corners outside of him. Like, if they didn't have him, like the rest of the defense outside of him still played well, right? So if they lose their best defensive player, the entire defense is already taking a step back. They need him to at least stay on like a competitive, comparable level.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, outside of Xavian Howard, Josh Allen got paid, reset the quarterback market, the non-Mahomes quarterback market at least. And, people are talking about the implications this has for Lamar. Does this have any implications for Baker? Do you think I know they asked Baker, are you worried about it? And he actually
So we're not even talking about the Josh Allen contract. How can we get this to be a Browns segment?
It's not a Browns segment. But it does have implications. It does have implications.
It does have implications for the Browns and the Ravens. But I mean, they don't need to make a decision on anything this year. So like it will have implications next year. They don't. And I didn't think the Bills needed to make that decision. It was a little bit surprising that they didn't ring out another year of Josh Allen's rookie deal. But obviously, if Josh Allen has another MVP caliber season, he gets even more expensive, and he's already quite expensive. So I can see why they did it right now. I probably would have waited one more year to do this, but I don't have any problems with them signing him. I mean, you get your star quarterback, under lock and key, I don't think that's a horrible move.
Yeah, no. I agree that it didn't make a whole lot of sense to make this deal so early. But no, if you're trying to save money, I guess that makes sense. I think the difference with the Browns and Ravens is the Browns and Ravens have to kind of ensure that their guys are who they think they are. And the Bills probably already feel confident.
I kind of 100% disagree. I think it was good getting this done early. Do you guys think that Josh Allen's going to have another MVP season?
I think that is substantially likely. Yeah. I think that he's going to have a really good season. And next year there is the Baker and Lamar deal that could reset the market each time. So yeah, I guess I can see it that they did it now.
So if I'm the Bills here, I know you could get the 5th-year extension, but you're still only paying him $16 million next season. And I would rather be the team that resets the market than the team that has to react to the market reset. I also feel pretty confident that he's going to be good next year. I think all the signs point to his improvement being legit. And I think letting him prove it again next season would make him massively more expensive. Yeah. So I like the deal. I think he's got, elite potential if you're not already saying that he's elite. And we could make an argument for you never pay the quarter. Like I know Theo, like that's some where it's like paying a quarterback ever this much money might make it really hard to build a team.
Right.
But if you're going to pay a guy big money, I'd rather it be somebody who I think is this high level of player and matters this much to the offense. Right. So I'm totally on board with what they did.
Yeah. I do agree with that. I don't think it's a horrible move at all, but yeah, the data of, a quarterback has never won the Super Bowl taking up this % of the cap. I would have liked to have gotten another year out of that, rookie deal, but the team is already what it is. So it probably wouldn't have even mattered that much for this year, but I don't hate it. I do think that that'll be a problem if they do pay Baker that kind of money, because I don't think Baker is the type of quarterback that is, the team around him is what it is and Baker is what he is. I think the team around him is better than Baker, whereas Josh Allen, I think Diggs is a baller, obviously, but I think Josh Allen is a different caliber than a lot of other quarterbacks. So
yeah,
I do think that when you get a guy like Josh Allen level, you got to take that chance. When it's like Baker or Goff, or Garoppolo, all of those guys, well, not Baker yet, but Goff and Garoppolo at one point have had mega deals. That's not the kind of guy that those are the kinds of deals you regret. So as far as Baker goes, that's what I'd say about it. And Lamar, I think this is a big year for Lamar. If he regresses further, or if he even has another season like he did last year, I don't know if he's a guy that I would give like 30% of the cap to or something ridiculous like that, which is just the way it is. I think that he needs to be back to very close to his 2019 levels. But I think that it's very possible for him to do that because he's done it before, and the wide receiving core looks good or better. So I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I would expect Lamar to get back at least close to that MVP level. But yeah, no, if he doesn't, then you really can't justify paying someone that much. As far as the rest of camp goes, the one thing I've noticed, right, is I keep seeing Darnold starting to come together in camp, right? He had August 2nd, he had that really bad interception. Jets fans were like, I'm getting PTSD. I see AJ Green's, starting to have some chemistry with Kyler. The Chargers offense is starting to roll a little bit. I keep seeing Herbert to Keenan Allen, Goff to Hawkinson. Brian Edwards is lighting it up in camp. The one thing that I would be concerned about is if you see, obviously you don't want to see people struggling in camp, but you always see offenses doing well in camp. The big concern I would not be concerned if you're the defense is struggling in camp. Defenses take longer to get things together in camp. If I'm seeing offenses struggling in camp, I don't know, Darren Waller hasn't been to camp, right? That's not a concern. But there are guys where like Zach Wilson being inconsistent in camp is like a legitimate concern for me.
Well, those quarterbacks are wearing the red jerseys, right? And you know what that means. You can't sack them. You can't obviously the offense should look pretty good when you have that. So yeah, I agree that you see more good news than bad news in camp. And it's like, you should look good in camp. Offenses should look good when the quarterback can't get sacked. And when, you have a lot of time to throw the
Offense
football.
should look good when the quarterback
Offenses look good when the quarterback can't get hit. And also, as far as the media goes, in fantasy implications go, people love to cover the good wide receivers. People love to cover the breakout sleepers. That's not on defense. That's on offense. People like to cover, Marquez Callaway breaking out. Yeah. People like to cover Michael Carter breaking out. No one cares.
I've seen maybe 3 defensive highlights of camp.
Right.
Like there was the Derwin James interception, the Jalen Ramsey interception. I think the Greg Newsome interception.
And stars and young rookies.
How many highlights can you have on defense when you can't sack anybody and you can't hit anybody?
Right.
The only thing you can do is intercept stuff.
And then there was the clip of Aaron Donald losing a 1-on-1 to what was it, a Cowboys?
Connor, Cowboys. They're gone.
Yeah, that was the only
But yeah, that's the offense. The fantasy industrial complex wants to push sleepers. They're not pushing the undrafted cornerback who's locked down a couple reps. Like that is that's a very niche kind of thing.
I'm thinking about it. Have you guys heard anything bad about a wide receiver?
No. I heard that Rager hadn't done much, and then he had that one-handed catch.
The one-handed catch of Rager.
I heard that Rager wasn't being too impressive.
But you'll hear 100 great things about a wide receiver and hear one bad thing about a wide receiver.
Yes, and to get the Rager news, I had to read deep into a Philadelphia beat writer's article. It was not. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. So that's I guess the main takeaway is maybe we shouldn't take these camp analyses with too much weight. I don't know. Maybe it's I just feel like when I look at these offenses, it's Trey Lance is balling out, Justin Fields is balling out. I just want to take it with a grain of salt. I really do.
Well, I think the way to look at it is if what you're hearing from camp supports what you already thought, then it's proof that you're right. But if what you hear from camp doesn't support what you already thought, then it's just training camp, and you shouldn't take it that seriously. That's how I've always done it.
No, that's exactly
but I like
what it
Trey
is.
Lance and Justin Fields, and I'm just
man.
So then you're right. You're right.
It's like Zach Wilson, right, and Joe Burrow, 2 guys who I have famously criticized, have horrific days in camp. I'm going to look at that, and what other conclusion can I draw?
No, Theo, you don't get it. So if an offense is supposed to hum in camp, then an offense not looking good in camp is a really bad sign.
Yeah. I agree.
Flag.
I agree. And you practice how you play. I'm not saying practice. If your practices are a mess, you're probably not going to step onto an actual field and light it up. Right. Yeah. I think that's one thing that people do discount is if you look horrible in practice, the odds that you step onto the field and all of a sudden things are figured out, is low. But if you look good in practice and it doesn't seem that there's any problems, that's not really a guaranteed win. So I think looking bad in practice does matter more. But every wide receiver, every team probably has a wide receiver that is breaking out in training camp, and it happens to every team every year. But when it's Marquez Callaway, and I said that he would be a sleeper, it matters a little bit more.
You know what really
because
gets me
everything
sometimes?
You say comes true.
When it's Brian Edwards, yeah.
No, because I was on Feleipe, Franks, and Callaway too, but I get no love for that.
Okay, you didn't
let history show that I was the first one to say something about Franks in the group chat.
You said his name.
Then when Theo cares,
you said Feleipe Franks, and that was you didn't elaborate. You just said his name. I didn't know what to take from that.
It's clear what I meant.
And then Callaway, I brought him up as a sleeper, and then you were like, he is on my fantasy team. So you were there, but you didn't vocalize it.
I'll keep you guys updated from here on out on the transactions.
I have one more sleeper. Team. We're going to get into the fades here, and guys we don't like. I've got one more sleeper. Donald Partham, I think his name is Partham, a tight end for the Chargers. He was someone that I liked last. He had 10 catches last year or something. And he was someone that I forgot. I was like, that's a sleeper for next year because I thought he looked good on those 10 catches. And then I forgot about him and I forgot to bring him up. And then I saw a report on him that he was getting a little bit more work with the ones or something, or they wanted to feature him more in the offense out of training camp. And I'm like, I forgot about Donald Partham. He was my sleeper last year.
His catch radius is silly. He's 6'8".
Yeah, he's 6'8".
With a stupidly long wingspan. I guess the big concern about him, and at least in the fantasy community that I've looked at, it's like everybody was excited about him and then they go get Cook and you're like, great. So he's not going to get serious targets. But
yeah, I'm talking.
Maybe he does run with the ones. Maybe he does look good.
I'm talking deep sleepers here. Anyway, this is not a sleepers episode. This is a fades episode.
Fades episode.
Guys, we hate.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to go guys we hate. But we're going to hop into some fantasy fades, some guys that, maybe we thought didn't perform, or maybe guys we think won't perform as well this year as they did last year, or maybe guys that are just getting a little too much hype and maybe don't deserve it. Starting with tight end, Matt, any guys you don't like here?
I think he's a great player. I think he is going to be very good.
Oh, God.
But at tight end number 4, Kyle Pitts is tough because think about this. Tight ends notoriously don't do well their rookie year, right? It's a very hard position to learn. At tight end 4, I don't know if the upside is there for him because to be better than the tight end number 4, he needs to beat out either Darren Waller, Kittle, or Kelsey. For him to underperform from that expectation, he wouldn't even need to be like a bust or anything. He would just have to have like a normal tight end season for a rookie, or be worse than like Hawkinson or Andrews, which is totally reasonable. I like him. I think he'll be a very playable fantasy tight end. I believe in the skill set. But drafting him at 4, I don't think leaves you the upside of him like wildly beating expectations.
I think the only problem with having Pitts not be tight end 4, maybe 4 is too high. I'll give you that. The only problem with, the whole, rookie tight ends are never good, is that Pitts might be the best tight end prospect we've ever seen.
See, here's the thing. Pitts is the best tight end prospect we've ever seen. But even then, him beating tight end 4, he could be the best tight end prospect ever and not beat tight end 4. That's an insane standard.
I think I talked a little bit about this on the Stay Hot Shot about Kyle Pitts. And honestly, I don't know. I think that he is a little bit more wide receiver-y than a lot of tight ends, and I think they can have, what's his name? The other first-round tight end from the Ravens. Who's the other tight end there? What's his name?
Hurst.
Hayden Hurst perform more of the typical tight end stuff. Because he is a decent option. I don't hate Pitts at tight end 4. I really don't. I think that he is profoundly special, and I feel like he can be Jimmy Graham right away. I know that, and outside of Ridley, I don't know who the other options are.
Russell Gage, I guess.
Russell Gage. Frank Darby is a guy that I like, and I would maybe pick him up if you're in a 20-man league or something. I'm not fading Pitts so much as I am Logan Thomas, who to me is in the top 10 tight ends lists. He's getting drafted before Noah Fant, Gronk, Robert Tonyan, Mike Gesicki, Jonnu Smith, and Irv Smith. I don't know if I would rather have Logan Thomas than any of that. And Logan Thomas ended up well last year, but it was kind of a weird season last year. And he's kind of a weird player. He's like a former quarterback, not that good at blocking. They brought in Curtis Samuel this year. They brought in a quarterback in Fitz that is a little bit more willing to take shots to the outside of the field, deep and outside, which they didn't really have last year. Logan Thomas, to me, it's really, I don't know if I'd feel confident with him as my tight end 1.
Yeah.
If I exited the draft over someone like Gesicki or
I'm buying
Johnny
what you're
Smith.
saying.
Logan Thomas is
with the Kyle Pitts stuff. If he does line up a wide receiver a lot, he is going to put up crazy numbers and be tight end 4. And then with Thomas, 110 targets is a ton for a tight end like him, and they just paid big money for another target.
And they brought in a tight end in the 4th round, John Bates. And with Pitts, again, like, what does it take to get an 1,000-yard season with a 17-game schedule? It's something like 50-something yards a game. I think we can expect multiple 100-yard games from Pitts. I am not fading Pitts as much as I am Logan Thomas.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess with Pitts, I'm a little worried. Like I said, him being better than tight end 4 is an incredibly tough task. But I 100% agree that, like, if he does line up a wide receiver, they are going to use him. The offense is going to be good. The only thing is,
I remember when Pitts was coming out, he made a statement that he wanted to play more inline tight end. That was something that he wanted to do.
And he can do that. Like, he's not a horrible blocker. He's not a really good
It's not even about blocking. He didn't people were like saying that he should line up outside receiver, and he's like, no, that's not where I'm most comfortable.
The thing is that while it's true that rookie tight ends struggle a lot, rookie tight ends are also usually not the second target on their team. And Pitts will be. I still think he totally has the potential to be beaten out by, like, Hawkinson or whoever. But Pitts being, I don't know. Yeah,
I might take Hawkinson above him. That's where I can kind of see the fade is if you want to.
I've been saying Hawkinson might be way too low.
I don't. I guess I shouldn't have him as a bust because I don't think he's going to end up being like tight end 15 after this season or something really low. I do kind of believe in the talent, and I wasn't thinking about the target share.
Bladen, do you have any tight ends that you don't like?
I liked I disliked Logan Thomas. That was one guy I was leaning, mostly because I was going to go Robert Tonyan, but Robert Tonyan, it was like below Logan Thomas. I was like, okay, maybe Logan Thomas might be a bigger fade. But Robert Tonyan, to me, when he was on the field, or when he was like getting receptions, because he had like an 88 catch percentage on just like wide open targets. Like, I remember someone was like, bro, you need to watch Robert Tonyan tape. And it's literally just him standing wide open. Like, the DB falls down and he's just like, no one within 20 yards of him, wide open touchdown. And I just don't see a scenario in which that happens again.
I don't know. I feel like Robert Tonyan at his value is actually pretty good just because, like, he is someone that is playing in a really good offense that I think is going to generate a lot of points. He did not drop a single ball last year.
But is he going to be a dominant force in that offense? Like, are they going to be getting him the ball frequently?
I mean, he's getting drafted at like tight end 13 right now. He doesn't need to be a dominant force to be a fade. He just needs to be like a borderline top 10 tight end fantasy wise. And considering they don't really, Mercedes Lewis is never going to be a dominant receiving thing. Jay Sternberger is missing he's on the roster bubble. He doesn't have a ton of competition for that role. And he's in a really good offense. He doesn't drop the football, doesn't offer anything after the catch. And, he's not going to be this big tackle dominant breaker like the top 4. But at where he's getting picked, I'd rather have him than Logan Thomas, honestly. But I like Tonyan. And then there's also, I got to figure out what I think of the New England tight ends, because obviously they've got 2 of them, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, I keep leaning. One of them's going to be like explosive and the other's just going to be, I feel like, a dud. And I can't quite figure out who it is. I'm thinking Hunter Henry's going to be the one to kind of blow up.
I'm the opposite. I think Jonnu Smith's a little bit more talented. I see the training camp videos of him getting handoffs. He's really good after the catch. He's kind of the opposite of Tonyan, where he's like, he gets the ball in his hands and he can make some dynamic plays. I think that he is the one that has a little bit of a higher upside.
Yeah, that's the thing. I haven't heard anything out of camp to this point, so that's kind of where I'm, trying to see is if what happens in camp.
Yeah, people are excited because he's getting handoffs, and I don't know if that's going to be an effective thing they do all the time, but that's what's got people excited, is they're clearly trying to get the ball in his hands with these designed handoffs.
Yeah. Back to Logan Thomas a little bit with him switching over from quarterback. I can't trust any skill position player like that after Terrell Pryor.
Right.
I believed in Terrell Pryor so much.
Terrell Pryor had 1,000 yards for the Browns.
Me and my dad, before he broke out, we went to training camp because they were having it at the shoe. And we saw him out there, like, oh my God, he's actually really good. And then the next season he goes for like 1,000 yards. And I thought that he was legit. And then it just didn't end up working out that way. Because I think him putting up those type of yards was really more about him getting a ton of targets than him necessarily being super efficient with them. And Logan Thomas wasn't super efficient with his targets. And now he's probably in line to get a little bit less. So I'm fading him a little bit too.
Yeah. Awesome. Good to agree.
But moving on to receivers. I think receivers are a little bit tricky because, again, we talk about every receiver is getting hype right now. So are there any receivers that you think in particular that might be getting too much hype?
I would say Jamar Chase is the guy that I'm fading, and I'm kind of fading the entire Bengals offense. I don't really expect them not to get kicked in the mouth here. And we always talk about like wide receivers, they get hype, but they never look bad. Jamar Chase has kind of not looked great. I've heard that his hands have been inconsistent. The Bengals had a decent day of camp a couple days ago, I heard, but their wide receivers were kind of getting beaten up a little bit, and the defense was routinely winning against the offense at Bengals training camp. And that scares me, especially with my priors about Joe Burrow and how I don't think he's ever going to be a dominant, dynamic player. Plus, I was a little bit lower on Chase going into the draft. I still thought he was worth a first-round pick, but he does have some issues separating, and he does have some issues, I think, as a route runner to begin. And I know the problem with, as Bengals fans have told me a million trillion times, they were at the bottom of the league in separation last year. And I don't know if Jamar Chase really fixes that issue. And he's getting drafted I think above Kenny Golladay. He's getting drafted above a lot of good wide receivers, and guys are really excited about him. I'm not even sure he's better than Higgins or Tyler Boyd, who are two good wide receivers. B, I'm not sure that he's in a good passing offense. And C, there is no C. Those are my main two problems.
I'm mad at you because my guy was a Bengals wide receiver too. T. Higgins, somebody I've never really been that high on. I'm too low on him in general, but I'm seeing him above multiple really talented wide receiver ones like Odell and Sutton. If you want to throw Robbie Anderson in there as a tight end one, you could. Brandon Cooks. T. Higgins could be like the third option on that team. And I think taking him over some guy, I think that really, really, really limits his upside. Because I have a hard time imagining that all three of those receivers, they're all going to get 110, 120 targets. That's going to be tough to pull off. I know they're going to pass a ton. I know I said that earlier. And I still think they're going to pass a ton. But I don't know, dude. I kind of agree with you. I don't trust the Bengals offense, and I'd rather take a shot on Sutton or Beckham than I would on T. Higgins.
One more guy I could say, or Bladen, have you got one?
No, you can go. We'll see if you take my guy.
I might say Julio. Because I'm such a big AJ Brown believer that I honestly think that with Julio's injury history and his age and his struggles in the red zone and his lack of touchdowns that he is routinely, and it's a pattern now, have failed to have gotten, I don't know if I feel good if Julio Jones is the best fantasy wide receiver on my team, which is where he's kind of being drafted right now. I like Julio a lot, and I think he's still kind of got it. But with the injury risk and the other weapons on that offense and his problems in the red zone, and now Derrick Henry and AJ Brown are there to also vulture those targets away, I just don't know if he's going to have the touch. He's never really had the touchdown volume, and I don't know if that's going to fix itself. And I think that, his target volume may go down in general, and he's older and more injury prone. So that's one guy, and he's getting drafted as wide receiver 14 right now at the list I'm looking at. Yeah. And he's probably not too much farther below that, but I feel like I might even rather have someone like Amari Cooper than him. I don't know.
I mean, Amari Cooper is only one spot ahead of him.
Plus, in leagues, if you're playing with more casual people, I feel like Julio Jones would go a little bit higher than 14th because he's still viewed as a kind of a top 5 wide receiver. That might be one guy that I would not really love as my fantasy wide receiver 1. But again, I'm not that much lower on him than his ADP, but that's just one more guy that I was thinking.
I've been bouncing back and forth on DJ Chark. I really don't know. Kind of for the same reason of like Matt with T. Higgins, where it's just like, are you really taking him over Cortland Sutton and Odell? It's like, sure, I guess like coming off of injury, maybe you don't expect him to explode right away. But I just don't know if I'm out here like loving DJ Chark, especially, even maybe it's like a wide receiver 3 or like coming off the bench. But like as a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1, I don't really love that. I think his ADP is like 75, which is like fine. But again, I don't know if I love that for like a wide receiver 2.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair. He is going above Sutton, who I think I would rather
maybe Sutton's just too low. Maybe that's the moral of the story. We're over here like DJ Chark, T. Higgins overrated. Like maybe it's just Cortland Sutton's and just not getting.
He's going above
love.
Deebo Samuel. Yeah. I might take Deebo Samuel above him. He's going above Brandon Cooks. I might take Brandon Cooks above him.
I thought Brandon Cooks was really low. If I'm looking at him, I'd say, maybe I don't trust him to stay healthy. That's probably why he's so low, but he could be in line to get like a stupid amount of targets or something.
Yeah. So I would say that Chark is definitely above some guys that I would rather have than Chark. So I
think the only reason people might not be high on Brandon Cooks is because he's on the Texans.
Well, also that offense is not trustworthy. Yeah. I get it. I just think a wide receiver 40, if you can still get a wide receiver number 1.
Yeah. And a good one. Like he's historically been pretty productive, so maybe he just absolutely sucks, but I feel like someone's going to get good value. It's not a sexy pick at all, but like he should be decent.
Yeah, but I think, moving on to running backs, again, it's like receivers just get like all of them get a lot of hype, so it's really hard to sit here and be like, oh, well, this guy's getting too much hype. But moving on to running backs, are there any running backs that you guys are just like, bit shaky on?
I've got Najee Harris is a guy that I'm fading pretty hard. He's one that I've been just sitting here thinking about all the reasons that I don't love his situation. And what it comes down to for me is, how is Najee Harris, why is his season going to end up differently than James Conner? Like what is the thought process?
I think the difference with Najee is he's supposed to be more explosive and a little bit more electric, but watching him in the preseason, they gave him a fair amount of touches. He didn't look all that great.
It was 7 carries in the Hall of Fame game, but I would agree I don't know if the gulf between Najee Harris and James Conner is especially huge. And that's not even so much Najee Harris slander as it is James Conner praise. I talked about him in the sleeper episode. I mean, last year or over the last 3 years, James Conner here are his broken tackle percentages: 26%, 28%, 23%. The average is 20. Nick Chubb has been at 24%, 25%, 29%. Dobbins was who we've all talked about and love. He was at 24%. Derrick Henry in 2019 was at like 23%. Like James Conner breaks a lot of tackles. It does not matter behind this offensive line.
But it's not even about breaking tackles. It's what you do after you break the tackle that matters. When Nick Chubb breaks a tackle, he then shifts into a second gear and takes it 50 yards.
Yes, but I don't know if Najee Harris isn't really a speed guy. He's a broken tackle guy. So I don't see how he's going to. And the thing is, people are like, oh, he's going to get so many carries. Is he going to get so many carries? Because what happens if you give him 7 carries in the first quarter, they pick up 20 yards and you're down by 10? Like, then you have this fantastic wide receiving core. Are they really going to commit to the run when they've got Claypool and Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson, and maybe they're down and the running game's not being very effective? Like, they say they want to run the ball and they say they want to give them all these carries. And in the preseason game, they're going to come in and they played them deep into the second quarter. But I just don't know if it's going to, Najee Harris is getting drafted like in the first round pick kind of range. James Conner finished as like running back 25 last year, and he got hurt a little bit. But I think there's a gulf between where Najee is. I'd rather have like Chris Carson than him. I think I'd rather have like even maybe Miles Sanders than him. Austin Eckler, I might rather have than him. I don't know. There's a lot of guys.
I can see Eckler. I like Eckler a lot.
I kind of disagree with you on this.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Big difference between James Conner and Najee Harris is that James Conner is running back number 2 on a team that signed him for like a minimum contract. Najee Harris is a first-round draft pick invested in him.
Yes.
It's kind of like the same thing with Ezekiel Elliott. You know, you can not believe in Ezekiel Elliott all you want, but if they give him a ton of carries because they're paying him a bunch of money, he's going to put up good numbers. And I kind of do believe that the Steelers have a tendency to have like a bell cow guy that they want to run a lot. And I think Harris can fill that role. Maybe you're right that the difference between Harris and some other running backs isn't as big as maybe other people think. But being that guy with a first-round draft pick on a team that likes to have a bell cow dude is a pretty good sign. He's sitting here at what? Running back 10? I could see wanting Eckler above him. There's definitely some other guys below him I'd draft possibly over him. But his volume could totally be nuts. And I think that's what people are going to be looking out for.
I think it could be nuts, and I think they want it to be nuts. But I think once the season starts, they're going to find that if they run it a whole lot, I don't think their running game is going to be particularly effective, and then it's going to be...
Also, this kind of, to me, feels like a Ben Roethlisberger season more than a Najee Harris season. Like, if you remember, like, at the end of Favre's career, when they just threw the ball an absurd amount, and they just let him go crazy. I kind of think that's what the Steelers do with Roethlisberger.
Well, Favre was a better quarterback in 2009 than Roethlisberger is right now. I mean, Favre
absolutely,
was an MVP
but I think, you know, just for the sake of like sending him out, like you don't want to send him out running the football 30 times a game. You want to send him out, you know.
You want to send him out a winner, and you want to do the things that make you win. And I feel like passing to that wide receiving core makes more sense than running behind that offensive line. So I feel like Najee Harris the amount of carries he's going to get is a little lower than people think is another thing.
Yeah. You know what? Because the Steelers' plan definitely is to run Harris a ton. But in the past, they have not been one of the highest rushing attempt teams in the league. They're in the bottom half pretty consistently. So I guess the question is, do you think the Steelers one, it could work and then they'll run them a ton. Two, it could not work and they could say, screw it, we gave up a first-round draft pick. We're committed to making this work. We're going to run. Or it could not work out and they're like, screw this, and then they kind of abandon the run a little bit. Not abandon, but, run less than people are expecting. You can also just
move him into the slot. Like
Najee Harris over Juju Smith-Schuster? You'd rather have Najee Harris running in the slot?
5 wide, man. 5 wide.
Okay. They might do that. They do love shotgun, but I don't think that that's something you can really bank on. Matt, is there a guy that's not Najee? We've talked so much about Najee Harris. Who's not Najee Harris?
I did want to say that also Carolina has been pretty low in rushing attempts. So I guess it's more about the share of attempts he gets rather than the total number of team attempts. So that does make me feel like if they give him all the touches, it doesn't even matter if they try to abandon the run a little bit. If they run it 25 times a game and Harris gets 20, that's going to be like, one of the highest rushing totals in the league. So I guess I would disagree with you. I believe in Harris.
All right.
As far as players who I think are rated a little too highly, the guy I had was Jonathan Taylor. I'll be honest with you. I kind of changed my opinion as I've been glancing at some things here.
I thought about recording. Yeah, I thought about
saying Taylor because on paper it's like, well,
what makes the situation this year better than it was last year? That was what my thing was.
So you're sitting here, you're like, this is my thought process. He's got 2 other backs in there who are going to get some touches. I like Marlon Mack. I like Nyheim Hines.
Yep.
Quarterback situation is a huge mess.
Their offensive
and the best offensive lineman is out.
Yeah.
So even if you expect him to be a little bit better than he was as a rookie, you can only expect him to be, so good. He finished as running back 6 last year, though.
He's being drafted. You and me went through the exact same process.
So I was thinking like this can't be that good. And then it's like I just didn't realize that he finished that high. So I don't want to be the guy who doesn't give an answer, but I've got
one more,
guy.
so it's okay.
I have one. If you
who do you have?
If you're interested, Saquon.
Okay, I honestly don't hate Saquon as an answer here. Yeah,
it's like coming off. We already know like running backs have a short shelf life. Coming off a big injury, I don't know, like, unless he's Adrian Peterson, which he might be, we know he has that kind of athletic, gift. I just wouldn't bank on him because the rest of like every other running back who's gone through a super major injury, they usually don't come back and they're usually not like super explosive. So I don't know. Maybe it's a reach, but I wouldn't bank on Saquon being.
There's a lot of weapons there with Toney and Galladay and even Evan Ingram, as much as he gets hated on, is probably going to get a decent amount of targets. Shepard, Slayton, the offensive line we watched him in that Steelers game. They gave him the opportunities. What came of it? Nothing, really. He had one long run where he had a hurdle, and I think that was on a pass. So, and he might not be back until week 3. So if you draft him, you don't quite know when he's coming back because he might not even start the season.
Matt, do you have ADP up for running backs? Where's he?
So here's the thing. I would agree with you, but he's running back 6. And at that spot, I'm thinking about it. What the strategy is to like draft Saquon and Michael Thomas and forfeit the first couple games and then try to be a God squad from there on out.
Back half of the season.
I can see where you're coming from with Barkley. Like, because if they try to work him in slow at all, or if he doesn't come back and is immediately awesome, you're looking at like 4 or 5 weeks of not having who would be the guy who would be your number 1 pick. And it would be a struggle for you to win games. So I can see where you're coming from, but I kind of believe Barkley's going to come back.
I got one more guy. I got James Robinson is going above Travis Etienne. All right, let's say this out loud. There is an undrafted guy
I had Robinson on my list.
James Robinson is an undrafted free agent from a previous regime. Didn't have that many he was good last season, but there was a lack of explosiveness there. Then the new regime comes in, drafts an explosive, the fastest running back in the class in Travis Etienne, who has immense receiving potential and has played with their starting quarterback. And people expect the former to outperform the latter. I do not buy it. I think that James Robinson is not, if Urban liked him, they probably wouldn't have drafted the wide receiver, the running back in the first round. Like the guy with the undrafted talent levels versus the new shiny receiving first round pick who played with the quarterback. Give me the new shiny first round pick that came with the quarterback over James Robinson. I think James Robinson is at high risk of being a pretty clear backup because Etienne has, so much more in terms of athletic gifts, I think, and explosiveness.
I see what you mean, because at his ADP, you kind of have to draft him as your running back 2, and you have to draft him pretty high to do that. And it's like, that could end in disaster.
That's like a second round.
You really
pick.
Don't know what Urban's going to do. It's hard to predict because Robinson's got the talent, but then maybe he gets traded. So you're really rolling the dice on that one.
Yeah, I'm not touching James Robinson.
I'll put it this way. If you're drafting Najee Harris at 10 because you think he's going to get such a great carry share, then you can't possibly trust James Robinson to get a great share of the carries.
Absolutely. So I think we have one more move on to quarterbacks. Who do you guys dislike here? I really only have one guy. Well, I guess kind of 2, but
I have a couple guys. And I think one guy, I don't remember, but I might have had him as a sleeper last episode.
It was Burrow. It's Burrow, right?
Dude, literally no way. He has no rushing upside. The injury it sounds like the injury has been really not like it's really affected him. And again, that's a huge question. We haven't actually seen him play, but that's the reports from training camp. The offense doesn't project to be that amazing. So the amount he would need to lead the league in attempts to meet maybe the expectations that we have.
Because he's quarterback 12. Like we're in a 12-man fantasy league, right? If someone left the draft with Joe Burrow as their quarterback 1 I would rather draft like Trey Lance than him and then draft some other quarterback until I think it's inevitable that Lance takes over for Garoppolo. I'd rather do that. I'd probably rather have Trevor Lawrence. I'd probably rather
Matt Ryan is the big guy. I'm looking at here. I'm like, I'm taking Matt Ryan over Burrow without the injury risk or with
I might take Cam. I might take Cam. I mean, Cam's I think could get 30 touchdowns because he always gets like double-digit rushing touchdowns. So if you get like 15 passing touchdowns this year, like that's probably a better option than Burrow. I know that initially it looks like maybe he was a sleeper because, you know, they do project to pass it a ton to decent wide receivers. But with the reports out of training camp and just the injury and, you know, his overall
the injury problems alone make him too risky to touch.
It's the same thing with me for Saquon.
You don't need to take a big risk with your quarterback one in a 1 QB fantasy league. So don't.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier for him to reach like the lower spectrum of outcomes than it is for him to reach the upper spectrum of outcomes.
And he had he played in 10 games last year. He finished as a top 10 quarterback 3 times, and 2 of those was as 10th. He finished as a bottom 20 quarterback 4 times. So it's not like he was consistently like top 10 last year, even with all of his attempts. Do I project some giant step up this year where he's consistently being in the top 10, top 12 and like avoiding those bottom 20 finishes? I don't really think he's going to take that step this year with the injury. So yeah, I'm fading Burrow, and I know it's got to be annoying. I'm sorry, Bengals fans. No, me always constantly hating on the Bengals, but really, I don't know what else to say.
It sucks because I want Burrow to be good. I want him to be good so bad. But I feel like it'd be wrong not to take into account this injury. And then you look at some of the guys who are getting drafted above him, and I'm like, it's just going to be tough for him to finish above those guys. Like, I mean, Stafford and Tannehill and Brady and Rodgers. It's just like those are some guys who were, you know, very consistent. You're very confident that they're going to be good or they're going to put up great numbers. And again, I think if people want to blame, like, they just want to say, oh, the Bengals offensive line can't be trusted and it's going to get Burrow hurt. Well, that's another concern too, then, that he might be a little bit more injury prone behind that offensive line. So it's just, there's a lot I don't love about that situation for him. If he was healthy and on a team with a better offensive line, I'd probably feel different though.
You know, it's interesting. Someone told me that, like in my comments section, they're like, you guys always talk bad about the Bengals and the 49ers. Like, why do you hate us so much?
Hey, we can talk good about the 49ers. I know this is off topic. I think Trey Lance is kind of a sleeper. I think if the rushing potential is there, what's he getting drafted at right now? 21. I'd take Lance as my backup. If he's starting week 1, I'd take him as my backup. Hope the rushing potential is there. Maybe
if you could get like fun backup. I would kind of take, if you could get Matt Ryan to start and then like Trey Lance to be the backup.
And that's what I think. That's what 100% what I think your quarterback strategy should be. Take a guy who's consistent and probably not going to screw you up unless you get like a really good value on one of these top guys. Go Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Lawrence, Wilson, like whoever, and then go with a guy with some more upside as your backup, like Newton or Lance or whoever.
Yeah.
Any other fades besides?
I have one.
Joey football.
I was going to go with Carson Wentz just because of like, you probably won't play a whole lot this year.
That's a bold take.
Yeah.
He is quarterback 26. You don't need to fade him.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a fade. Jalen Hurts, man. God.
That's the other guy I had on my list.
Jalen Hurts. First of all, the Eagles hate him, right? And that's very obvious that the Eagles hate him. If he goes to Houston, nah, bro. He's not. I'm sorry. He's not performing in Houston. I don't even know if he's performing in Philly just because it's very obvious that they like don't have any faith in him.
I like the rushing upside. I do.
He had some crazy games last year. That game against Arizona, he put up a stupid amount of fantasy points. And I had him. I'm in a 20-team league. And it's deep. And I had Hurts stashed for so long. And I wanted to kill the Eagles coaching staff because they just refused to put him in consistently. And when he was in, he put up some decent fantasy numbers. But yeah, he's been creeping up and people see the rushing upside. But I think the odds that he frustrates the Eagles and gets benched and it might be unfairly. It's just high.
It is unfair. It's too high. He's getting drafted as a quarterback 1. I don't trust him to play the whole season. Then I'm good. I like the upside. It's definitely there. But even then, I don't know if I think he can exceed the ADP that much. And that's really what I think a lot of what you got to look for.
What is his ADP?
I'm looking at it.
Last night it was 13. Right now it's crept up to 12.
So I think the way that I looked at some of the busts that I've been saying aren't even guys that I don't believe in, but guys who I think their ADP is so high where it makes it really tough for them to beat the expectations. And you got to find the guys who are going to beat the expectations and beat where you can pick them at to get good value and win leagues.
Like Marquez Callaway.
Just like Marquez Callaway.
He's probably getting overdrafted at this point. He probably I don't know where
apparently
he is.
there's I've seen like some reports that like Michael Thomas isn't happy right now because he tweeted something out.
He tweeted like he tweeted some cryptic wide receiver bullshit that wide receivers are the only position that ever posts cryptic things. But yeah, I don't know. Michael Thomas is an interesting one. I don't know if he's a fade because you could probably get him pretty crazy late in drafts right now. But yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I definitely see a scenario where like Thomas, like things just don't work out with that and he's injured. I love Thomas when he's on the field, but
he's awesome.
The injury stuff's definitely scary. And you got to invest a lot in him to get him.
All right. Well, I don't know. We'll probably have fantasy drafts pretty soon here for us. I don't know about everyone.
I know some have already gunning for September 1st for our draft. But
I know we're already peppered with DMs asking people to grade their teams. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to do it. I don't care. I'm not going to answer every fantasy question you have. I get
this
sick
is big.
of it.
This is Mr. Man of the People. Won't grade a couple fantasy teams.
I won't do that.
It's not that you won't grade a couple. I know I dealt with this last year where people were like, hey, rate my fantasy team. I did one and I had like 50 DMs the very next day.
Should I start blank or blank or blank or blank? I don't know. Figure it out. I don't care. But anyway.
Exactly. It's just
we'll give some fantasy advice on the pod overarching, but I'm not going to answer your individual question. I'm sorry. There's a lot of them. But anyway, I know because I've gotten these questions that you guys are starting your fantasy leagues. Hopefully this episode illuminated some of our thoughts. But I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah. And hopefully our opponents in the TikTok league don't watch the episode.
You guys are my opponents in the TikTok league.
Hey,
so don't steal my take.
There's more than just us.
I know.
The actual preseason games are going to be happening. Hard Knocks. And a super exciting announcement. We are going to all be together for the very first time this week in Las Vegas. We're going to be recording in an in-person studio. We're going to the Raiders training camp. We're going to be going to Summer League. And just an FYI for everyone, Friday's episode will be coming out a little bit later because of that. We're going to actually be recording on Friday. But I trust but trust me, it will be worth it. Tons of content coming your guys' way on the TikTok, YouTube, and podcast channels. Make sure you don't miss out on any of it. From Matt, Theo, and Bladen. No nicknames today, but we will catch you on the flippity flop.